Hey, horror fans, once again, it's the Horror Miser Monty G. Yes, I'm continuing my series once again in celebration of Black History Month. It's called Blacks in Horror. Last week I did the movie review of the movie Bones that stars Snoop Dogg. This one I'm doing the Anthology horror movie called Tales from the Hood. Yes. Now, Tales from the Hood is a 1995 horror drama anthology film. It was directed by Rusty Kuntneff. I think I mispronounced that name. It was executive produced by Spike Lee. It was under his production company, 40 Acres and a Meal. Now, this anthology horror picture is kind of urban-based themes, horror stories based on problems that suffered by African Americans, such as police corruption, domestic abuse, racism, and gang violence. These stories play into any of those aspects, and I'm here to talk about this movie and what I thought about it. I figured this was a good movie to talk about for blacks in horror. Now, with all anthology movies, you have a main story most of the time called the wraparound story because it begins and ends with that particular story. And in the wraparound story, which is called Welcome to My Mortuary, we have the mortician called Mr. Sims, played by Clarence Williams III, a veteran black actor. He's meeting up with these three drug dealers called Stack, Balls, and Bulldog. They're there to buy drugs for him. But instead of taking him to the drugs, he shows them caskets with bodies in them. And each particular body that he shows, he particularly tells a story of them. And in this one, he tells them 4 stories. And let's get on with the first story. Now, in this story called Road Cop Revelation, we see a young black officer called Clarence Smith. He's out on patrol when he watches in horror as his partner, Newton, along with fellow white officers, Bills and Storms, beat to death black activists and civil rights, civil rights protester. They beat him up Rodney King style, and they eventually kill him. A year later, a drunken and guilty-ridden Clarence Smith, all of a sudden, he meets up with a zombified Morehouse. That's the guy who the white cops beat to death. And he tells them to bring me the people who killed me, and we'll get them retribution. And a lot of crazy shit happens in this particular story. A lot of people die very violent deaths, and we also see something terrible happen to Clarence Smith, and that's why he's in the morgue. And that's basically what the first story is. It's about obviously police brutality against blacks, and of course, this was taken right around the same time as the Rodney King scandal and the potential riots that took place after that. In story number 2, boys do get bruised. In this particular story, we see a young boy named Walter Johnson who comes to school with bruises all over his body, as obviously he is being abused. His caring teacher, Richard Garway, notices the bruises and asks the child, is he being abused? And the child simply says, yes, I'm being abused by a monster. We also see that when one of the bullies in the school is picking with poor Walter, and Walter has his immense nice talent that causes the bully to suffer some very, very terrible injuries. Now, I won't say what that talent is, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, once we see who is actually abusing this poor Walter and his mother, we actually turn out that it actually is a monster that's abusing this poor child. Once again, but Walter's ability comes in play, and let's just say that that abuser gets what's really coming to him. And we get the message that the filmmakers are writing for this one as we talk about domestic abuse in this particular story. In story number 3, which is called KKK Cut-Uppance, in this story, we have Duke Mecker. He's like a David Duke type senator and a former KKK guy. This is a very interesting story right here. He, along with his campaign manager, some type of African-American mouthpiece called Brody, they are warned by one of their protesters that the house that they live in, or their plantation, was the site set for, the plantation. It was a former slave plantation, and it used to be haunted by dolls that were possessed by the slaves who were tortured and killed in that particular plantation. They, of course, ignore his warnings, thinking he's stark mad. But of course, we know it isn't long before the weird shit start to happening, and the dolls actually do come to life, and some very interesting effects. And let's just say that Mecker does get his comeuppance in this particular film. The fourth and final story, which is called Hardcore Count. In this story, we see a violent gang member. His name is Jerome Crazy J. John, who basically kills without mercy. He has no remorse in his killings. When he tries to ambush and kill a rival gang member, he is shot and not killed. Even he's not shot to kill. He is injured by three of the rival gang's members and is taken to the hospital. He's eventually thrown in jail, charged with murder, and convicted, and is thrown in jail. Fortunately for him, certain Dr. Crushing transferred him out of the jail into this facility where they experimented on him. With some weird-ass experiments. It looks like they're trying to redeem the guy and make him realize the error of his ways. But can this violent gang member actually be redeemed? Should he be redeemed? That's the message that we get in this particular story. Do keep in mind that even though I will not reveal the fate of this character, let's just say that does he deserve the fate that he gets in this particular story? We get back to the wraparound story, and let's just say that this one and Violent Crazy J are kind of tied together. I won't reveal that much, but there is a twist that happens at the end of this movie, which I found fascinating. I won't mention what it was, but it does end in a nice way, especially for the three gang members. Now, I will have to say that Spike Lee and the filmmakers actually took a chance on making a film like this because all the settings are urban settings, and it's basically some of the stuff that happened to African Americans, especially during the 90s. And you would think that, well, it might appeal to people like myself who grew up at that, who was an adult at that time, or people or other African Americans who were affected by what happened. It might not appeal to other audiences, and I feel as though they took a chance on doing something like that. But lucky for them, it's the horror aspect that really drives this film. Yes, it might not appeal to a certain audiences, the type of message that they're trying to give here, but it's the horror aspect that really pulls this film and makes it enjoyable for anyone who does appreciate horror. One of the things I do saw about this film, there are throwbacks to a lot of blaxploitation films back that came out during the 70s. We see nods to that. There's social satire in here. Basically, there are a lot of messages that are in this particular film, as I stated before. The first story obviously deals with the Rodney King stuff that happened. Other stories, such as, should people who abuse children is that the fate that we all want them to meet? We would love to see them get what they're coming to them. I believe those are some of the messages that the filmmakers are having in this particular film. As with all anthology stories, there are certain stories that are pretty good. Now, most of these stories are basically the same, but the one that really interests me was the Crazy J story. I thought that was interesting how they played this off, because you have this guy. He just kills without mercy. He doesn't care who is in his way. He's going to kill them. And he goes through a whole bunch of what you call body modifications. It's almost similar to A Clockwork Orange when you see some of the stuff that he's put through. And it makes you wonder if, when in one part of the scene, he's shown a bunch of imagery such as, cross burnings and lynchings. He showed that imagery. And in another part, he's actually confronted by the people who he's killed. And it makes you wonder whether or not, is that something, should people who've done violent crimes should have a way to experience something like that. That's why I found fascinating about the fourth story. Now, overall, as a horror film, this is pretty good. You have some great on-screen kills. You have some good practical effects. The dolls it was a little bit cheesy with the dolls. They could have done a better job of animating the dolls and make them look a little bit better. So I will hold them with that. But everything else is pretty good. You have some nice on-screen kills. The stories are pretty good. The acting is very well done. Like I said, you had the excellent twist in the final part of the wraparound story. So overall, I did enjoy this film, and a lot of other people did enjoy this film. It's a good horror movie. No, despite the fact it is oriented in a certain audience, but other audiences can enjoy it mainly for the horror aspect of the film. So, the Horror Miser is going to open up his vote, and I'm going to give Tales from the Hood 3 out of my 5 gold coins. So I'm going to get Tales from the Hood 3 out of my 5 gold coins. I think everyone, I think most people will agree with me that they enjoyed it mainly because it's a good horror picture. So, my horror fans, have you seen Tales from the Hood? What do you think about it? Did you mind the stories that were simply just based in African American? Did you mind that? Or did you just enjoy it because it's still just a good horror picture? Leave your comments down in the comment section below and tell me what you thought about Tales from the Hood. Well, once again, that's my video for today, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up because it does help the channel out a lot. And once again, if this is your first time here, please hit that subscriber button and ring that notification bell. That way you can come and enjoy the horror experience with me, the Horror Miser Monty G. And as always, all my social media links will be down in the description box below as well. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember, horror rules. Vince, take us home. We're out.